Well, the Shivling was found today, but this may only be the tip of the iceberg. Times Now's access map submitted by the British government in court in 1936. So nothing to do with the Modi government, the NDA. This is the British government. You can see that particular map. You might have seen it earlier, but here, viewers, for you are more details which lay out clearly where the mosque is situated and then what was the Mahadev temple at one time. Statues of Bhairav, Ganesh, Mahadev, Mankeshwar and Tarakeshwar are marked. But to really understand how these temples are placed vis-a-vis today's structure, let me go across to my colleague Padmaja Joshi. Padmaja Joshi.
Thanks very much, Rahul. Now, this was a map which was prepared not by the current government, but this map was submitted in the 1930s by the British government in court. This said, plan of the ancient temple at Vishveshwar. Right at the center, this map marks out the Shivling, which was present, but it wasn't the only one. This Shivling purportedly is the one that has been discovered today from the Wuzukhana. But in addition to that, this map marked out multiple temples, that of Tarkeshwar, that of Mankameshwar, that of Bhairav. You see, each one of them has been marked out. Now, on both sides, you see one Dandapan, and then you see on the other side, there will be a Dwarpal. And on all the directions, then you have the various temples. You see that dotted line? That is where the mosque now exists. So what the British did, they said, this is the temple compound, and on top of that, they put a dotted line saying the initial temple compound currently has the mosque right on top of it. Not only that, in addition to marking out all the various places where the idols are present, that of Ganesh, that of Bhairav, they also marked out where the domes of the mosque currently exist. Now, in addition to the temples, like I said, on both sides, you had the guardian of the temple, as it were, the Dwarpal. But right in the end, you will see the minarets of the Gyanvapi Mosque are marked out right on top of the temple compound.
Padmaja, for that, breaking news coming in, we are being told that the Varanasi administration has sealed the Wuzukhana as directed by the court. So this is a big step. Let me try and go across to our reporters on the ground there. But before that, I want to bring in Dr. Subramanian Swamy, who is, of course, an important player in the larger scheme of things, because the impediment to taking this forward, if the Hindu community wants to, is, of course, the Places of Worship Act of 1991. I'll come to that. But Dr. Swamy, today's significant day really confirms what we have all known about the antecedents of this particular mosque and the fact that it was built on the remains of the Vishveshwar temple. Now, I want to ask you, where do we go from here? Because already the politics has begun. The Hindu side, led by Hindu groups, say that, look, now this must be called the Gyanvapi Mandir, not the Gyanvapi Mosque. On the other side, Mr. Owaisi, who you often debate with and debate against, has said, look, nothing doing. This will remain a masjid. We've already handed over Ayodhya. No question of handing over the Gyanvapi shrine. How do you see this now evolving?
Well, you see, first of all, let me say two things. One, whatever is the discovery has been very graphic, and I must congratulate Times Now for bringing it out with such clarity. But we all knew, and Aurangzeb himself in his Farman states, that the temple should be demolished and a masjid should be built on it. So, I mean, whatever we found is just proof that what Aurangzeb ordered was in fact done. And I am not surprised, as you had said in your own introduction, that is not a matter of surprise. The question is, what is the step forward, which is the important thing you are saying. As far as Owaisi is concerned, he must know that he cannot give a fatwa to us, because there is a constitution. We are also not going against the constitution. If 80% of the Hindus decided to descend in Varanasi, what do you think will happen? This country will go to pieces. So we don't want this kind of talk that, no, this my way or the highway, which Owaisi has been doing. What I am saying is that there is a block now to take over that temple. And the government has many ways of doing it. Article 100A, which I have used before in the Ram Mandir case also, the government can take over that entire land of Kashi Vishwanath and or the masjid or whatever you call it into government's hands, and there's nothing they can do because it's not a religious place. It's they say that it's a masjid. Masjid is only for reading namaz. We can make you read it somewhere else. We'll build it for you if necessary. So, but on all this, the block is that 1991 Act. It's an act passed by the government of the day. I don't understand why we cannot have it quashed, withdrawn by the government of the day today. And I've repeated this, I've written to the Prime Minister about this from quite some time, that just move a simple resolution, you're withdrawing it. Then we will discuss. We are not going to race into that campus of the mosque. We just want the courts to go into this question that this is a question of faith. This is not a question of worship. You have Ram Mandirs all over the country, but where he was born is a matter of faith. And you have to respect that. You have respected Bethlehem or Al-Aqsa Mosque. On the faith question, we have said, yes, it's a religious place and can't be touched. So same way, this is my faith that Lord Shiva put the linga there, and whether this was the linga or some other linga, we will find later. The fact of the matter is that we have to also look at the Gyanvapi well to take it out. So all put together, the focus should be how to get rid of the 1991 Act, how to get it deleted. And either you do it to the Supreme Court, for which my petition is pending, or you have the Prime Minister in the next session of Parliament have the Act withdrawn.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you're saying nothing can really move forward till this Act is withdrawn. That's an important clarification, because we've been reading increasingly commentary from lawyers who say that there are exceptions that are built into this particular 1991 Places of Worship Act, which don't extend, which means that, you know, antiquities do not really fall under the ambit of this Act. Where do you stand on that?
I don't agree. They have talked to me also about it. It's a wrong interpretation that they are giving. You see, the issue is, I don't want this is a question, either we have the government withdraw the Act, right, or if I am arguing, I will only say that this Act calls for the abolition of Article 32 of the Constitution, which is impossible. It's part of the basic structure. You can't do that. So it's a contradiction with the Constitution, and they should be struck down. It doesn't matter whether there is a section or not a section. I want this obnoxious Act to go. We are not asking for all the temples which are demolished to be restored. We are only asking for 3, of which 1 is already over and 2 are left.
Thank you, Dr. Swamy. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us clarity on this entire issue. It is obviously caught up. It's going to hit this 1991 Act. Of course, there's a debate around that too, which we'll come to later. But thank you, Dr. Swamy. We'll catch up with you as the days unfold over the next few. Remember, this report is to be submitted on the 17th, viewers, which is tomorrow. And that in itself will lead the court to make certain observations. Alok Kumar, International Working President of the VHP, also joins us. But before that, I want to bring in Amir Haq. Amir, very quickly, coming across to you, the entire Shivling now discovered in the Wuzu area, the Wuzu tank or the Wuzu well, call it what you want to. It's been drained, and now apparently it's been totally cordoned off.
Well, absolutely, Rahul. The district administration has taken over after the directions from the court this afternoon, wherein this application was made by one of the lawyers there, Harishankar Jain and Vishveshwar Jain, stating that they were present when the videography and photography was on during the survey, and that they have actually found out this particular Shivling right between the pond from which, or the Wuzukhana from which they used to do ablution. The Muslim community people who used to turn up there at the mosque to offer namaz, they used to perform wuzu over there. This was right in the middle of that pond or water body, whatever you might call it, and that this was somehow hidden from the view because a well kind of a structure was built around it. Now, whether this was done willfully or whether it just happened to be that way is something that will be found out in the ensuing investigation, perhaps, which the court might order after this. Because remember, this cannot be an investigation or a survey in finality. Tomorrow, perhaps, if the court-appointed commissioners, the advocate commissioners will submit their report, the court will perhaps want to delve further. Remember, it was last year in April when this court itself, the civil judge court in Varanasi, had ordered an ASI, an Archaeological Survey of India survey into the Gyanvapi complex to establish whether it was a Hindu structure or a Muslim mosque, as has been the claim from the Muslim side. So a lot of investigation needs to follow up on the survey that has concluded today, and nothing can be said as of now in finality, although yes, the Hindu side is much buoyed, is enthused with the prospects of this Shivling having been found there, but there could be much more that doesn't meet the eye at the moment.
Thanks indeed, Amit. Let me go straight across now to Alok Kumar, International Working President of the VHP. Mr. Kumar, thank you for speaking to Times Now. I want to ask you a very straightforward question. Agreed that the truth about the Gyanvapi complex is surfacing. It has obviously been videographed. It will be now submitted to the court. But what does it mean now for this entire process? It's going to be with the court. Already we are hearing a large number of Hindu groups come out and say that this complex now must be called the Gyanvapi Mandir. Do you support A, this call, and B, will it not be provocative?
In my understanding, if the court tomorrow holds that yes, this is a Shivling, then the portion of that structure which houses the Shivling will obviously not be a temple, will obviously not be a mosque. Where the Shivling is, the area would be a temple. And so it was on 15th of August 1947, because a Shivling does not form part of a mosque. If this is the position, then the area where the Shivling is situated is a temple, was a temple on 15th of August 1947, and is not covered by the restrictions in the Places of Worship Act. This area can be segregated and given over to Hindus for their worship. As far as Shringar Gauri is concerned, that is on the outer wall of the mosque, the side of the wall which faces the street, and the Hindus are permitted to worship Shringar Gauri on the Chaturthi of both Navaratras. Till 1992, the Hindus were permitted to Shringar Gauri on all times of the day. So therefore, as far as the Shringar Gauri is concerned, there is no difficulty. Hindus are still worshipping it for 2 days a year. They should be allowed to worship it all 365 days a year. And within the present structure, the Shivling where it stands is an area which is not a mosque, was not a mosque on 15th of August, and can be allowed to the Hindus for worship. That is my understanding of the situation.
But won't that create a huge complication? Because you will have Hindus chanting in the same complex, or prayers will be conducted in the same complex as the mosque, and the mosque is barely 30 yards away.
Right now we are discussing the legal situation and the possibilities. And I feel that both communities are mature enough when it comes to it to sit down and settle some norms by which both can coexist. I would additionally say that even the Places of Worship Act, the constitutionality of it was challenged in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has already issued notices on it and is seized of the matter. If that act is quashed or goes away, then it would be a different situation and Hindus would have a right to claim the entire area.
Well, if the government strikes it down, that would also, of course, logically follow, Mr. Alok Kumar. Already we are hearing Hindu groups saying that this area should be called...
Yes, that's right.
Yes, the Gyanvapi Mandir. It should not be called the Gyanvapi Mosque anymore. Mr. Owaisi has come out and said very clearly that this will remain a mosque. Ye tha, hai aur rahega. Mosque rahega, masjid hi rahega. हमने अयोध्या दे दिया मगर ज्ञानवापी नहीं देंगे.
We had heard the thunders of Owaisi in the wake of the Ayodhya judgment also. Owaisi and the persons like him. But when the judgment came, the people of India, both Hindus and Muslims, showed sufficient maturity. We live under a rule of law. The Supreme Court decides.
Okay.
Everybody accepted the judgment. There were no riots. There was no violence. And the judgment was accepted. So, this would be in spite of the Owaisis. If the courts decide it, the people would accept on both sides.
Sure. Thank you very much for speaking with me.